Back in the 13th century, a storm was sweeping across the world. And I'm not talking about weather. I'm talking about the Mongol Empire, the largest the world has ever seen. They seemed completely unstoppable. From the Pacific all the way to Europe, kingdoms were just falling like dominoes. But way down in Southeast Asia, one small kingdom just refused to break. This is the absolutely incredible story of how Đại Việt, which we now know as Vietnam, stared down the full might of the Mongol horde and somehow won an impossible war. So let's just paint a picture here, because this is a classic. On one side, you've got the most terrifying military machine on the planet. The Mongols were a superpower, famous for their lightning-fast, battle-hardened cavalry. And on the other side, you've got Đại Việt, a nation with a pretty new dynasty, the Trần, who were outnumbered like you wouldn't believe, just trying to defend their home. This was the ultimate David versus Goliath showdown, and believe me, the stakes could not have been higher. Now, you gotta understand, for the Mongols, this invasion wasn't just about grabbing another piece of land. No, Đại Việt was a strategic stepping stone. The real prize, the big one, was the super wealthy southern Song dynasty in China. See, by taking Đại Việt, the Mongols could open up a whole second front, a pincer movement right from the south. This made Đại Viet's resistance not just a fight for its own survival, but a really critical move in the huge geopolitical chess game of the 13th century. So the Mongol commander, Uriyangqatai, he follows the standard playbook, right? He sends in some envoys and demands they surrender. But King Trần Tông, well, he gave an answer that basically sealed their fate. Instead of surrendering, he has the envoys thrown in prison. Talk about an act of defiance. Right after that, the king issues a national decree calling the entire country to arms. The line was drawn. War was coming. The Mongol invasion kicked off in late 1257, and the first major clash, the big one, happened at the Battle of Binh Nguyen. And this wasn't just any old battle. King Trần Tông himself was right there on the field, leading his army from the very front. The Trần army, they had a pretty amazing ace up their sleeve: war elephants. Can you imagine, as the battle starts, these massive animals charge right at the Mongol lines? And for the Mongol horses, who had never seen anything like them, it was just pure terror. They panicked, they broke rank, and that legendary Mongol cavalry was thrown into complete chaos. For a minute there, it really looked like the impossible was about to happen. But the Mongols, they adapted with terrifying speed. Seeing their cavalry in a total mess, the Mongol archers unleashed this brilliant and just brutal countermove. They focused their arrows not on the elephants' thick hides, but on their vulnerable eyes. And just like that, the wounded, blinded elephants went crazy, turning around and trampling their own Đại Việt soldiers in a wave of destruction. The tide just turned in an instant. The Đại Việt line completely collapsed. King Trần Tông, seeing the battle was lost, made a really crucial decision. This wasn't a rout. It was a tactical retreat. While Mongol arrows were raining down, his loyal general Lê Tun used a wooden shield to protect him. The new objective was crystal clear: save the army. Get them out of there, because this war was far from over. So, with their main army defeated and the king on the run, the kingdom was right on the brink of collapse. Morale was totally shattered. And this is when Đại Việt unleashes its most desperate and honestly its most brilliant strategy. Instead of making some heroic last stand, the Trần court just left the capital city of Thăng Long. They ordered a scorched earth policy. The entire population evacuated, and they took every single scrap of food, every tool, everything of value with them. They were going to deny the Mongols the prize they wanted, and more importantly, the resources they desperately needed to survive. At this absolute low point, even the king's resolve started to waver. He gathered his commanders and asked the unthinkable question: should we just give up? Should we flee south and try to find refuge in Song China? For a moment there, it really seemed like the resistance was over. And it was right at this moment that a single sentence changed everything. When the king asked for advice, his Grand Chancellor, Trần Thu Dol, gave this legendary reply. It was just this powerful, defiant declaration that instantly reignited the will to fight and became the rallying cry for the whole nation. No surrender. Not now, not ever. So the Mongols, they marched triumphantly into Thăng Long, only to find a ghost town. No people, no glory, and crucially, no food. Their massive army, which was their greatest strength, was now a massive liability. They were trapped in a hot, humid climate they weren't used to. They started suffering from starvation and disease,
all while getting picked off by these relentless guerrilla attacks.
And get this, the speed of this turnaround was just staggering. On January 17th, the Đại Việt army was shattered. Just 11 days later, on January 28th, with the Mongol army weakened and demoralized, the Chun decided, you know what, it's time to strike back.
And this, right here, sets the stage for the climax of this incredible story. The hunters were about to become the hunted. Believing the Trần forces were completely broken, the Mongols had gotten complacent. And that was their final fatal mistake. At a place called Dong Bo Dao, the regrouped Đại Việt army launched a sudden, ferocious counterattack. The Mongols, weakened and caught totally off guard, were just thrown into absolute chaos. The result? It was a catastrophe for the invaders. The once invincible Mongol army was shattered. The battle turned into a full-on rout. Their invasion force, which had marched into the country with so much confidence, was just utterly broken and now fighting for their lives. The survivors fled Thăng Long, making this desperate run back towards the border. They retreated so fast they didn't even have time to pillage or loot anything. And all along the way, they were being harassed by local militias, which just added to their misery. The mighty Mongol storm was driven out, not with a roar, but with a whimper. This humiliating defeat was perfectly captured in a nickname the people of Đại Việt gave the retreating Mongols, Zak But, which means the Buddhist invaders. It was a sarcastic jab, implying they were too virtuous to steal anything, just a final, mocking summary of their total failure. So there you have it, an unstoppable empire was stopped, not by a bigger army, but by clever strategy, a scorched earth, and the absolutely unbreakable will of a people defending their home. It was a stunning victory, but it was really only the first round. The Mongols would be back. So the question that hung in the air was, having done the impossible once, could Đại Việt possibly do it again?